Welcome to today's webinar series event sponsored by KPI Partners. My name is Jeremiah Johnson and I'm the Director of Marketing here at KPI. Today we will be hosting a customer spotlight featuring Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines. We are pleased to be joined by our special guests from Royal Caribbean, Illeana Gonzales and Richard Paley. Royal Caribbean is a global cruise vacation company that operates several cruise lines. The company currently has 40 ships in service. Royal Caribbean partnered with KPI on a very unique business intelligence initiative, which Illeana and Richard will be showcasing today. Illeana Gonzales is Royal Caribbean's Manager of Business Information Services and has 20 years experience in information technology, with the last 14 years at Royal Caribbean Cruises. Illeana has held a myriad of positions at Royal Caribbean, including Manager of the Internal IT Help Desk and Desktop Support Group. She has been a project manager, and she now sits as the leader of the Business Information Services team. Richard Paley is the Senior Analyst and Lead OBIEE Developer at Royal Caribbean. He has over 28 years in IT and has also been at Royal Caribbean for the last 14 years. As a member of the Business Information Services team, he is responsible for understanding business data challenges and providing solutions to meet these challenges. Richard was a key technical lead and developer of the OBIEE dashboard at Royal Caribbean. He worked closely with KPI to ensure the dashboard was developed in a way that provided business users with rich, actionable information. If you want to find out more about KPI Partners or how we can assist your organization with Oracle Business Intelligence or Hyperion EPM, please contact us through our website at kpipartners.com. I will now bring in Richard and Illeana, who are based out of Miami. Illeana and Richard, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone.
Yes, good afternoon.
So, Illeana and Richard, you've both been at Royal Caribbean for the last 14 years. What's been the most notable change in your industry during that period?
I think the amount of growth that the industry has seen in those 14 years.
Yeah, the growth has really been phenomenal, not only for our brands, but just across the whole industry.
Great. Well, I'll pass it over to you guys. The floor is now yours.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through just some tidbits on Royal Caribbean, background on the project, and we'll walk you through some of the objectives and business drivers, and then we do have some screenshots of the dashboard. With that said, okay. Royal Caribbean is the world's second largest cruise company, operating Royal Caribbean International, Celebrity, Pullman Tour, Azamar Club Cruises, and Crucier de France brands. As Jeremiah said, we have 40 ships with a passenger capacity of approximately 94,000. We anticipate, or we plan on having 3 more ships by the end of 2015, which will include or increase our berthing capacity. I'll give you some history on the project. So first, we embarked on this project back in 2009 as sort of a proof of concept. And the idea was to find or develop a dashboard that allowed our business users to really manage shipboard revenue. So this was launched in December along with the introduction to the fleet of the Oasis of the Seas, then the largest ship in the industry. Subsequent to that, we added 4 additional ships to the proof of concept or the pilot. And back then, we were using the version 10 of OBIEE. In 2011, we received capital funding approval to expand beyond the pilot. So RCI, or the Royal Caribbean International brand, has 22 ships in the fleet. So we had 5 ships that were leveraging the dashboard. So that capital funding allowed us to expand it to the rest of the fleet as well as add additional functionality. Then in 2012, we launched the dashboard. So in January of this year, we went live with the new dashboard on version 11 of OBIEE. So what were some of the project objectives? It was really to configure a new development and production servers, upgrade from the old version of OBIEE to the 11g, populate our Oracle Enterprise Data Warehouse with point-of-sale information, which we didn't have prior to the pilot. We expanded to include the rest of the Royal Caribbean International fleet. Like I mentioned, there are 22 ships in the fleet. We incorporated additional data sources to include cost, guest data, pre-cruise, and onboard shore excursions, as well as revenue targets at a voyage level. We developed a system of metrics which were clear, concise, and enabled our business users to make informed decisions. We developed an intuitive user interface which required minimal training, something that was key to our business users, given our ships are located across all over the world. What were some of the business drivers? To increase access to the data. Before this project, we really had no visibility to detailed guest-level transactions. So whatever was purchased on the ship by our guests, we received that information at the end of the voyage at a summary level, but we didn't have the detailed guest data. The data resided on board each vessel without consolidated view of the fleet. Like I said before, summary level voyage information was sent at the end of the voyage, really too late to affect any change. Another business driver was really to better manage the business, to grow revenue by understanding the relationship between our guests, demographics, and their spending patterns. Different demographics, really, guests behave differently and have different purchasing habits depending on their demographics, and that was very important. We were able to see that or achieve that with this project. To provide a tool for management teams to quickly identify revenue performance trends, and to really drive revenue instead of reporting on it. As I mentioned before, a lot of the times we receive the information, or all the time we receive the information after the fact. Too late to affect any type of change. Why Oracle BI? We really have a large Oracle footprint already here at Royal Caribbean. OBIEE product was available but shelved, so as part of another upgrade that we performed for Hyperion, we had purchased some OBIEE licenses, but they were not being used. It's scalable enterprise tool. It allowed us the flexibility to combine data from multiple sources fairly easily, and then easy to use, intuitive, and required minimal training. Again, this is something that was very important for us.
One thing we should be, I hope everybody understands, is that we have a very unique environment. We have on all of our ships, people come from probably 50 to 60 different countries with very different language skills. The ships range from the coast of China to the coast of India to off the coast of Italy. And certainly a lot from the Caribbean, as our name would suggest. We wanted this data to be easily digestible. And also, we needed it to be in a form that was deliverable to the ships and in a fairly easy and low bandwidth fashion.
All right, so to go back, some of the products that we currently have at Royal are Hyperion. We use PeopleSoft. Oracle Business Intelligence was really introduced with this project, and we have, we use it in other departments outside of this project. Siebel, J.D. Edwards, Oracle databases, and recently upgraded Essbase. Some of the accomplishments with this project is the data now exists in our enterprise data warehouse. Like I had mentioned earlier, we didn't have point-of-sale information, detailed point-of-sale information. As a result of this project, we now have it not only for the Royal Caribbean brand, but we do have it for the other brands, Celebrity and Azamara. And it is in our warehouse system, which can be leveraged and used by other departments and other initiatives. Combine data from disparate sources to provide a comprehensive view of each ship's performance. Like I said, we had cost information, we've added guest details, revenue targets. All that information was combined and is now available to both the shipboard and our shoreside teams. We leveraged LDAP for authentication. The tool was rolled out to 22 ships located around the world, and training was done via a WebEx. Very simple. It didn't take much training. Actually, the training was really conducted by our business users, and it was really more going into the metrics and defining what the metrics meant and how the metrics were, what information was required to come up with those metrics. Provide their management team with real-time view of how each ship is measuring against their voyage targets. So you'll see in some of the subsequent screenshots where we have targets for each voyage at a port level, and they have that information available to them. We provide business intelligence to allow shipboard management to modify onboard activities to achieve the desired results. So in other words, if they're not meeting their targets, they can look at the idea is for them to look at, sign into the dashboard on a daily basis and see where they're performing against their targets, and then make some adjustments as needed. What were some of our challenges? We had a few.
Yes.
Dashboard performance was key. Due to the low bandwidth, that was one of the key deliverables or one of the key success factors for this project. We needed to make sure that when the ships accessed the dashboard, they didn't sit around waiting for the information to paint. So it had to be light and paint within the few seconds or up to a minute, but no more than that. The dashboard design and all metrics required to support it were not finalized even after the project had started. That was a huge challenge for us, and if anything was a big lesson learned, was make sure that you have that design done as much as possible beforehand. I think we were changing some of the design throughout.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to do as much as possible to sort of support an agile development method as much as we could, but in this particular case, we really didn't have as much defined ahead of time as we really should have.
And that caused, in some cases, rework. The data was not available in the correct level of format, and that goes back to what we were talking about. So we didn't know exactly what metrics the business wanted to show, so that caused some, like I said, rework in some instances. Implementing the use of LDAP was a challenge due to our unique authentication process. Let me give you an example of how I can explain the challenge with this on our ships. A captain may be an account 450, and that same account is the same for every single ship. So a master on the ship is 450 regardless of which ship you're in. So that became a challenge when you had to authenticate from Adventure versus Oasis using the same account. So we had some difficulty in getting that to work.
And one of the requirements for the dashboard is that if you signed in from, let's say, Jewel Seas, you would see Jewel's data. So when you have a user ID repeating across the ships, we had to do more than just use the user ID to authenticate.
Okay, here is, I wanted to kind of give you a quick snapshot of what the original dashboard or version 10X looked like. And this was our original dashboard, and then you'll see that the one that we currently went live with, which is version 11 of the dashboard, it's significantly different. The colors, there's no red, there's no green or yellow, there's no dials. I mean, it's a much more soothing kind of color tones. So Richard is going to go ahead and take you through the next screenshots and go more into detail about the dashboard design.
So again, here's just for a second, the original design. And the original design, I mean, we worked very, very closely with the business users to decide what this should look like, but used a lot of totally out-of-the-box functionality. Didn't do anything really sophisticated to get this particular user interface to appear as it does. Here's the new dashboard, and you notice that, first of all, it looks entirely different. We decided that if you're using this as a daily tool, some of the whiz-bang colors and the fancy graphics really get in the way of presenting information after a while. They're very sort of sexy to look at first, but when you look at this day after day after day after day, you really want to be able to get to that nugget of information very quickly without having to sort of negotiate around a lot of colors and a lot of fancy graphics. So we kept information fairly clear, colors very muted, and try to really, as much as possible, highlight the key points of information that a user would need. This is basically the page you're seeing now is the landing page for most users of the dashboard. We call it the shipboard home. So if whatever ship you're looking at this from, you'll get the current voyage that you're on for your vessel. There are a number of different areas here. The left side of the screen is really the current voyage. We're looking at some of the key revenue areas of the ship: shore excursions, beverage, gift shop, spa, photo, and specialty dining. There's certainly other revenue we have on the ships, but these are the areas that are the most critical. We always want to show people how they're doing next to some kind of reference point. So in this case, this is actually financial targets that we show them the data to. The other very key piece of information we have here is demographics. We know that spending patterns are very, very different from one demographic group to the next. They actually are fairly regular within certain demographic groups. But to know who you have on board gives you a tremendous amount of information about how you're going to market to the people who are on the ship. The left side of the screen is a little bit more, sorry, the right side of the screen, I can never tell the difference, is more forward-looking. We do sell a certain amount of what we call pre-cruise revenue. That is shore excursions, beverage packages, spa packages you could buy prior to the cruise. And this basically shows you what's coming up on the next series of cruises. And the bottom on the right shows you what we expect the demographic mix to be for the next coming months. One of the interesting things about this particular page here is we're actually using 4 different sources of information to show the data. There's the point of sale information on the upper left. Demographic information comes from a reservation system, really, on the lower left. The upper right is a system we call ASR, Advanced Shipboard Revenue, and the lower right is from another database that contains sort of forward-looking forecasts. If you, by the way, look across the top, sorry, there's a series of tabs, each of which apply for the various revenue areas that we actually show in detail. Beverage, of course, is one of the most important on the ships. This is the beverage for, this is not a real sailing adventure. It's a real ship, but not a real sailing. Just to show you what the data would like. This is obviously would look like. This is a Caribbean sailing. One of the biggest problems we had when people would try to make use of any kind of onboard point of sale reporting is that the pattern that revenue, the way revenue builds during a voyage is certainly not linear. And we would think at the beginning of the voyage that we're doing really great, only to find out at the end of the voyage we really missed target. So one of the important things in this dashboard was to be able to show the expected pattern that revenue would have day over day, and to let the user see where they are relative to that pattern. Another thing we really wanted to show, this is on the right side of the screen, is for each demographic group, how they're indexing. What's the percentage of sales versus their percentage of guests? If you look in this particular data set, you'll see that Americans, for example, and if you hover over these bars, the actual numbers would appear. Americans have a greater number of guests than they have percentage of sales. Canadians, it's the reverse. So if I were someone who is managing, for example, Beverage, I would want to start seeing what's going on with my Americans, that they're not buying as many drinks as we might want them to. This is another graph that's on that Beverage page, which shows your spend by the type of bar that we have. And these are classified as, according to, sort of our internal system. And one of the reasons I really wanted to show you this particular graph is we didn't use a lot of drill down capabilities, only because we wanted the data to be as available as possible. Only let people drill down where they might have further questions. But this is one example in which you can, in fact, drill down. So if you were to click on destination bar, which is a type of bar we have on board, you could see this, for example, where we're showing the pattern of spend and what hours that they're spending, where the revenue is coming in. This particular page would also show you what product group, how they're spending by day, and you could actually look at this pattern by port as well. And these are the various bars on ship that actually comprise what we call destination bars. We also wanted to show people some specific demographic breakdown. And we found over time that the two major categories that really affect spend patterns is both nationality and age. So here's something from a different revenue area. This is sales, showing you a typical way that we want to show demographic information by age and by, this in fact is Americans on board the particular sailing, and what kind of products they're buying by sort of a product hierarchy on the left side, and then the specific things that they're buying and the percentage of sales for each. Some of these, I can tell you, were very, very complex, not that easy to construct.
And this is an example of spa. Before we were talking a little bit about beverage, but as Richard mentioned, this is another one of the revenue areas. This is a report that they can get to right from the dashboard. They click on there, and there's another report similar to this one that really provides information, top sales by employees, quantity sold, and so on and so forth. Okay. With that, we end the presentation, and we're open to any questions at this time.
At this point in our session, like Illeana said, we will open up the forum for any questions from the attendees. The first question we have here, who are the primary users of your system?
The system was really designed for two different set of users. The shoreside managers, especially the various revenue areas, beverage managers, spa manager, shoreside, and then the shipboard users. We wanted the hotel director, we have a position called a marketing manager on board, and then the people who manage the particular venues. So bar managers, the food and beverage managers.
So it's accessible to both shipboard and shoreside users.
Yeah. And eventually there'll probably be an executive level summary, but that hasn't really been built out yet.
I mean, the dashboard is changing a little bit as we progress and it evolves. We went live middle of January. Since then, we've got additional requests for changes. We've also have a request to build some month-to-date pages for the different revenue streams. So it's evolving.
So you had mentioned that these dashboards can be used during a voyage. and then some of the folks on board can actually make changes during the voyage based on how revenue streams are working. What are examples of a change that might be made on a ship during a voyage because of these BI reports?
Well, if they're not meeting their revenue targets during the voyage, they can look in the demographics that they have on board, and depending what the demographics, what demographics they have on board and their spending pattern historically, they can run promotions on the ships, whether it's, margarita sales or different promotions that are targeting or focused on the different demographics, and with that help meet their revenue targets.
Yeah, I mean, a very specific example, if we see that wine revenue in the dining room is falling behind, we would have a little training seminar for the waiters to push possibly a more expensive wine.
We've got some questions here from some attendees. Did you have any dashboards pointing to a relational database rather than a data warehouse?
No, not really. I mean, we designed this as a pretty strictly dimensional model as much as we could. OBIEE is happier that way. We did pioneer originally using sort of a relational database, and it's certainly doable. This one was so complex with so many different data sources that to have taken a relational database and turned it into the dashboard that you see would probably not have worked very well.
Okay, and we've got a couple people asking the same question here. Did you use any Essbase cubes as a direct data source for OBIEE?
No, not in this case. No.
Brandon asks, are there any other BI tools being used in-house?
We use Hyperion quite extensively.
And there's some business units that are using other products, but this is really the enterprise BI tool.
Yeah.
Do you have any details on the type of hardware environment used to deploy this?
To be honest, we worked with KPI on the specifications for the hardware for OBI hardware. Depending on the number of concurrent users, we spec'd out what the specifications for the server.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
I don't remember the exact specs, but we spec'd it out based on, I think it was 200 concurrent users.
I mean, one thing we did do is this is on a physical box. It's not on a virtual server.
And that was a recommendation from Oracle. They
Yeah.
do not support virtual. So we do have our development environment on a virtual box.
Okay. We got a question here on the point of sale data. How often is your point of sale data sent to your corporate office?
It's actually, we use SQL replication, and it's a trickle. It basically comes in all day long.
Okay. We've got a couple questions in regards to your team. How large is your internal Oracle-based technology staff, and how long has your in-house team been developing in OBIEE?
Well, developing in OBIEE, OBIEE was really introduced in 2009, the pilot, and it was essentially my team that introduced and worked together with the business to develop the first dashboard. But we do have a database team, and honestly, I'm not sure how many employees are part of the database team. We also have a data warehouse team, which we work closely with as part of this implementation. So we have a large support staff across the company for database and data warehousing. As far as OBI development, it's really right now in-house Richard, and we use KPI.
Okay, we've got a question here in regards to the upgrade between 10G and 11G. What were the drivers to conduct that upgrade, and What, if any, additional functionality in OBIEE 11g were you able to leverage?
I mean, the drivers were, since OBI initially, it was a pilot, and we introduced version 10. Version 11 was not out at that time. Given this was going to be a full-blown project, we wanted to introduce the new version. It had been in the market for a while. We knew, what issues were, had been reported, and we felt fairly safe to move forward with the 11G. We treated it as an independent installation and migrated the repository. But then, as you can see, the dashboard, I mean, it was a significant transformation. So we really abandoned the old one and just developed brand new.
And how long did that upgrade take?
It was about maybe 2 weeks, I believe. The upgrade was actually, other than using SSL, was fairly easy. The repository migrated without a lot of trouble. And actually, we did migrate the actual analyses, the requests themselves, and most of those came across without too much problem. Well, then we turned out not to use them, so because everything was just so different.
It was so different, and we introduced new sources, so we really started from scratch when we developed this new dashboard.
Okay, Robbie's got a question here regarding your challenges. How did you overcome your challenges that you listed earlier, such as user authentication, performance, etc.?
Performance, we did some testing with one of the ships just to see from a bandwidth standpoint. We tested with one of our older ships and then with the newer ships to have a good baseline as far as bandwidth goes. We worked with the individuals team from a data warehouse standpoint to do some tuning and the database team to do some tuning where we felt that performance in certain areas of the dashboard was not good. We worked with the individual teams to do performance tuning.
I mean, we basically did 3 things. Certainly, we took care of Oracle database capabilities, so we did some partitioning of the data. We used indexes where we could, and we also, where appropriate, built summary objects. And I think we got the performance that we got out of those 3 major thrusts.
Okay. And this is somewhat of a follow-up to that. Sunil asks, with real-time BI needs, how did you alleviate your data latency issues with the traditional ETL approach?
Well, I mean, this is not quite real-time. There's too much data coming in for it to be real-time, too many different sources. So right now, this is once a day refresh. Probably in the future, that'll be probably 4 times a day. And for purposes, that would really be adequate.
How does the crew access these dashboards?
This is not really intended for the crew, but management on board the different areas, so hotel directors, staff captain, anybody that has responsibility for any revenue area.
But there is internet access on the ships, if that's the question.
Yeah. So yeah, they were asking specifically: is this an extranet or intranet, or how exactly is that?
Intranet.
Intranet.
It's access via the intranet.
And then we've got a couple questions around the product used. Was this an OBIEE standalone against a data warehouse, or was this an Oracle pre-built BI application?
Standalone. Yeah. Yeah, this is not pre-built.
Can this be accessed via mobile devices, or is this purely a PC browser-based play?
No, it can be, and actually you could see it. I've tried it on my iPhone. It could also be seen on an iPad. At this point, for security reasons, you need to be on VPN. I mean, our virtual private network. So it's not as it's not as easy as you might want it to be for security issues.
I mean, this is something that the business would like in the future, but it's not something that we've tackled at this point.
But there is Wi-Fi available on the ships.
Okay, and then we've got a follow-up question in regards to the product. Alan asks, so he's just looking for clarification, I think. So everything that Royal Caribbean built was completely from scratch?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, of course, using the technology the tool provides, but yes, it's built from scratch.
Do any of the users perform any ad hoc analysis?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we have some users that have the capability to perform ad hoc analysis.
And I think we've got a couple more questions here. So any future plans for expanding BI at Royal Caribbean?
Yeah, as it is right now, we have our sales department, which we also conducted a pilot with on the old version, and they were just recently migrated to 11g. We'd also like to see this expand to the other brands that we have here at Royal.
And we have several other departments that are either using pilots or are interested in developing dashboards, risk management, guest services, revenue management.
And then finally, have you seen any ROI, return on investment, since launching your BI system across the fleet?
Yeah, well, we haven't actually measured it yet. It's not quite old enough. But there was one case of a particular vessel sailing out of South America that they could never make their targets in spa. It was always a problem. And using the information, especially the demographic breakdown, they were able to figure out who was spending on the spa and who they needed to get marketing information to, what products they should actually market. And since that point, they've made the target. So anecdotally, there's some very positive ROI on it, but it's a little bit too early for us to have really done any systematic measuring.
Okay.
We have big expectations.
Of course, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very, very much to the both of you. So that concludes the Q&A portion of the event. If you want to learn more about Oracle Business Intelligence, please reach out to us through kpipartners.com, and we will have a member of our customer care team assist you with any further questions that you may have. As mentioned earlier, if you want to find out more about KPI Partners or how we can assist your organization with Oracle Business Intelligence or Hyperion EPM, please follow us on Twitter at KPI Partners or contact us through our website at kpipartners.com. Thank you to everyone for joining us on today's webinar, and thank you to Illeana and Richard for presenting. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.